Big ideas and voices clear. CXXPX2, bringing the best straight to you. XM Gauge, turn the page, ignite the stage. Learn, grow, feel the spark, make every moment leave a mark.
Hi, I'm Debi Potgieter, a certified customer experience professional with over 30 years of experience in all things CX. Welcome to the XM Gauge podcast, where we bring you insights from industry C experts, exploring actionable strategies to elevate customer experience and drive real business impact. Whether you're a CX leader, practitioner, professional, or just passionate about customer experience, this podcast is for you. Let's dive in. Welcome to XM Gauge, the podcast where every interaction counts. I'm your host, Debi Potgieter. Here on XM Gauge, we go beyond buzzwords and shiny objects to explore leadership and experience management in ways that drive meaningful change. Today, I'm absolutely thrilled to welcome someone whose work has profoundly shaped how organizations understand human experience. He's been called the godfather of customer experience, the visionary behind humanity at scale, and he leads the XM Institute at Qualtrics. Bruce Temkin, welcome to XM Gauge.
Thank you, Debbie. I do have to do one quick correction, which is I'm no longer with Qualtrics. So the XM Institute is still there. It's being run by great people. My great team is mostly there. So they're still doing awesome work, but I'm out on my own at this point.
Your legacy lives on, Bruce.
Thanks.
I have to say, when I saw your recent reflections from your trip to South Africa, it felt like you were walking right through my world. You shared a story about gratitude, one of the wonderful staff at 𝗂𝗄𝗄. What a name and what a beautiful reminder of the power of connection. You said something in that post that I absolutely loved. Great leaders don't just focus on outcomes, they focus on people. That hit home, Bruce. As South Africans, Ubuntu is part of our DNA. I am because we are. What about your time here really struck you about people-first leadership? And how does Ubuntu tie in your work on humanity at scale?
So it's interesting. I had never heard of Ubuntu before I went to South Africa. And then I heard the term, I am because we are, and it was like my eyes opened wide because I think that actually defines what I work on and sort of my own deep purpose. And I just fell in love with the term, and so much so that on my podcast, I'm going to be doing an episode just on Ubuntu. Looking forward to it. But when I think about my visit to South Africa and what I saw was not just that there's this phrase Ubuntu, right? The idea that a leader or an individual doesn't succeed on their own. They never succeed on their own, right? There's people and others that are a part of that success. But it was that South Africa holds in it a sense of history, and that decisions and how they look at the future is based on a rich, deep understanding of the past as well. And I think that idea of legacy, right, that we have a history, and that history isn't glorious across the board, right? The history has pain. The history has human struggle. And I feel like the ability to hold that sense of struggle and that sense of past as you look forward and make decisions is really a grounding for humility. Because you can't move forward and make decisions like in the US where we're all renegades. And I feel like all too often in the West, we forget about our rich, deep history. And I think it's not only that I am because we are based on the people who are here now. It's I am because we are because of the history of the people that came before me. And so it was an amazing trip. And by the way, South Africa is beautiful and the whole rest of the trip. And I have to give a shout out to the animals. We've been talking about people. The animals in South Africa are also worth the trip.
You've actually brought tears to my eyes. I'm trying to hold back and control myself a little because those are so beautiful words. And it's so true, Bruce. Ubuntu shifts leadership from control to connection, from silos to collaboration, from short-term wins to lasting impact, sustainability. And it really aligns beautifully to humanity at scale and all the readings I've been doing on the work you're doing there. How did humanity at scale come to life for you, and why is it critical change in mindset that leaders need to focus on today?
Yeah, so it's there's always a sort of a clean answer to how things happen in the past and sort of a messy description of how they happen. So I'll give you an answer somewhere in between, which is that, you know, I've been working in the field of experience management, customer experience, employee experience for decades. And I feel really good about the impact that I've had on the direction that people have taken their careers and the decisions that a lot of organizations are making about how they treat people. What I saw was that if I continued to focus on what I was doing, and I loved what I was doing. I talked about I'm not with the Qualtrics XM Institute anymore. I loved it there. I still love my team. But I felt like there was a large inhibitor in the world that was getting in the way of what I wanted to actually see. And the inhibitor was that I saw that leaders were continuing to make the same type of decisions that they'd made historically, right? Putting profits over people, putting short term over long term, and missing a fundamental point. The whole experience management, customer experience, employee experience movement missed the point. And what the point it missed was, I think there's a mistake to choose profits over people, but I also think there's a mistake to choose people over profits. And what I realized is that if I wanted to see the change in the world that I aspired to see, that I needed to teach leaders, I needed to both inspire and empower them to see how focusing on people is in fact the foundation to sustainable success. And so Humanity at Scale came out. We came up with the term how Humanity at Scale. I was talking to my wife. I was saying, okay, I want to do something bigger. I want to have a bigger impact, and we're bouncing things around. And all of a sudden, the Humanity at Scale term we had on a whiteboard. I had lots of things on the whiteboard. It was like, oh my God, that's it. We didn't even know what it was, but we said that's it. So I actually left Qualtrics and decided that I didn't need to know what I was going to do next. I was going to figure out what Humanity at Scale means. And since then, what I've realized is that Humanity at Scale is really about how do we inspire and empower leaders to create human-centric organizations that rely on people to achieve long-term success.
Fantastic. And now we're in a world obsessed with efficiency and automation. Cost efficiency, budgets, big problem for many businesses. And you remind us to scale humanity and not just technology as well. How do leaders, though, in these massive organizations try and make it real when people just do feel like numbers?
So I think that to me, it's often the how we do the things we do, not just the what we do, right? I think that I have no problem with massive efficiencies, right? I do think that simplicity and efficiency is something that needs to be driven in most organizations. Like most large organizations expand the work, expand the processes, expand the rules to make them unwieldy and not sort of set up for long-term success. So I have no problem with driving efficiency. And I have no problem with leaders making tough decisions that at the surface can affect individuals and human beings negatively at times. But the way we choose to do it makes a difference, right? Let's take, there are times when organizations need to downsize, right? Not every organization is the right size of people for the mission and the purpose and the direction they're going in. That's going to be a fact of life forever, right? So you can't say that a human-centric organization doesn't let people go. But you can say that a human-centric organizations thinks deeply about how they let people go, thinks about the future of those people, right? And so I think there's a lot of how we do things. And I also think that as you start to have a longer term look at what sustainable success is, you recognize that the decisions you make have an impact on people in ways you haven't thought about. And if you can be more intentional about those things, then you can leave behind a legacy. And by the way, legacy is a term I'm going to be using more and more. And I think that goes to Ubuntu too. I think Ubuntu also is a discussion about legacy, right? Where Ubuntu is almost, I live in the wake of everyone else's legacy, which means if you follow that logic, right, that means people in the future are need to actually live off of my legacy, right? And so I do think that I can get leaders, or at least some leaders, to think about the legacy that they're leaving behind. And if they do that, then they'll choose to do things in different ways. At least that's the goal.
I love that. In your reflections on South African leadership in one of your articles, you highlighted powerful examples of purpose-driven leaderships, from icons like Mandela to Madonsela. What key leadership insights from those stories stood out to you the most, and how is that relevant to customer and human experience leaders today?
Yeah, it was so. I wrote one of my newsletters focused on 6 South African leaders, and it was because I was in South Africa and I wanted the world to capture the essence of these great leaders, and across them, whether it was Gore or 𝗪𝘂𝗺 or Mandela, they all made decisions in the context of the human beings they were affecting, right? Nelson Mandela, I mean, my goodness, like unified through forgiveness, right? Like talk about most of us wouldn't even think about that, but the idea that this deeply human belief, forgiveness, I think freed up people to come together in ways we couldn't see. 𝗪𝘂𝗺, the first Black captain of the Springboks, and by the way, I have to say, your audience will not like this, but I'm an All Blacks fan. So I apologize for that, but I didn't wear my All Blacks polo shirt when I went to South Africa. I knew better. So I know now all of your audience is turning off the podcast as we speak, but I think that the humility is a key trait of leader was unbelievable there. There's so much Madonsela, the integrity in the fight for justice, and Desmond Tutu. I mean, moral courage as a voice for reconciliation. If you look at all of them, I think they represent the Ubuntu notion, right? That it's not about what I do on my own, but I need to actually have empathy and reflectiveness and recognize that what I do matters. What I do matters not just in the context of the decision I'm making, but in context of the systems I'm a part of and the people that surround me. And so and I do have to say I want to be truthful on your podcast, right? I'm not saying that South Africa has perfect leaders, right? And I picked out 6 iconic leaders, right? South Africa, like every country on earth, has leadership problems, right? But I do think that leaders who sort of embrace the spirit of South Africa, who embrace the humanness of South Africa, have distinguished themselves in ways that other people can learn from. And I had to say that because I think, if anyone's listening, they go, what are they talking about? Is, South Africa the only place, and is it this utopia of leadership? No, but the foundation of humanness is very strong there.
And that humanness is our Ubuntu. I loved what you said about Adrian Gore building discovery around the idea of business success and social good that go hand in hand. And it makes me think that as leaders, we need to balance profit and purpose. So Bruce, how do we avoid falling into the transactional CX instead of delivering the transformational human experiences that we should?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's a trap that we fall into all too often. And to me, I think we have to remember that organizations have a core purpose. And we have to start by recognizing what that purpose is. And CX people aren't going to love this, customer experience people, but making a profit so that an organization can sustain itself is part of the purpose of an organization, right? Like you can create the organization has the most ideal sense of what it wants to do in the world, but if it can't fuel that effort, it won't succeed. So we have to start by recognizing that organizations have a goal, a purpose, right? So when we think about customer experience, we need to think about it not as a separate thing on its own. Like I never like to be perfectly frank, I don't love the notion of a customer experience strategy, right? Like to me, customer experience is a tool, an effort, a set of capabilities that should be used to help us succeed the strategy of the organization, right? And so as soon as you start separating out the discussion of customer experience from the discussion of the organization's goals and objectives, you're establishing 2 paths, right? One path is the organization business path. The other path is the customer experience and its strategy path. And as soon as you do that, you're always going to face, do I focus on one or the other? What I like to do, and what I'm trying to get leaders to think about, are the tools that we have associated with customer experience, whether they're, deep, rich insights about what people are thinking and feeling, or whether they're experience design so that the interactions we have meet the needs and expectations of the people we serve. That those tools are fundamental for us achieving whatever our business goals are. And oh, by the way, here's the great part about this. If we use those tools, then our organization will operate more efficiently because we will more directly meet the needs of people. We won't have miscues. We won't have as many people complaining. We won't have as many customers and employees feeling like we're not delivering on the things that they want to. So that if we do it, we can actually use our resources more efficiently and more effectively. Remember what we started our discussion as, right? Organizations are downsizing, talking about efficiency. Well, you want to be efficient? Get people what they need in the way that they need it the first time. And get rid of all the overhead. And if you think about organizations have a lot of overhead when they have miscues around misunderstanding people, not knowing what they want, not treating them the way that they should be treated, and making things way too confusing and way too difficult to interact with. So That to me is how we do it. We think about CX not as a separate stream of activities, but as a foundational tool for achieving what the organization wants to achieve.
I like that. And it's absolutely integrated into the lifeblood of that organization in its culture and how it treats its people and shows up for its customers as well. And we're in a space, Bruce, where AI and automation are accelerating rapidly. There are some fear that we're losing the human touch. Many articles, blogs, and podcasts about that of recent. What's your take on how technology and humanity coexist? How do you ensure that automation enhances rather than erodes the human experience?
Yeah, I think your last element of that question is a great one, right? It ultimately it can do everything from, kill humanity to enhance humanity to levels we've never seen in the past. And the reason it can do all those things is because it's just a tool, right? Technology, whether it's the digital evolution, whether it's AI, those are merely tools. Like fire and weapons for cavemen, like the wheel. They're just technology. The question isn't what is AI going to do or what is digital, all the technology. The question is what is we as human beings going to do with those tools? And so I don't have a crystal ball as to which direction it will be because people use technology in lots of different ways. But I will say this, that I am hopeful that AI and the use of AI will make things more human. And here's my logic behind that and why I am hopeful about it. Because before AI came, for the last few years, leaders in organizations, I think, have not been clear about their values and purpose, right? We've sort of created this world where people can operate blind of things like values. What AI forces us to do is to make decisions about how we want this technology to operate, right? And part of the decisions we have to make about that technology is, do we infuse the notion of values into it, right? Because AI, at the end of the day, what does AI do? AI sort of acts, from an organization, like helps us do the tasks we want to do and actually takes over some of the tasks that we no longer want to do. And so leaders have to ask the question, right? Do we want to infuse those activities with values? And the reason why I'm hopeful is that it actually is easier to infuse our values in the technology than it is to infuse our values into tens of thousands of employees and partners we may have around the world, right? Because we can teach it, right? And we can teach it once and it scales. So I think that if you look at it, right, if I'm a leader and on one hand, I have 10,000 employees and no technology. And on the other hand, I have, 5,000 employees and a rich technology stack. I like the rich technology stack because if I can infuse my values in that and have it augment and teach the employees along the way. So I actually think that we are going to enter into a period of self-reflection where leaders and organizations are going to say, hey, do we keep going as we're going, or do we take advantage of this moment to infuse our values and what we think is important into the AI and the technology stacks that we use?
It makes so much sense to me. And I think that's exactly where we need to go as leaders and businesses, is embrace it if it's as it is there and make full best use of it and help our employees have better human experiences with it, enhancing their delivery and their outputs and their learning process as well. Bruce, we have now to move into our quick fire session or rapid fire session, where I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. And I'm going to ask for your quickest gut response on these. Are organizations sacrificing human connection in the race for digital transformation?
Too often, yes. You want more?
That's good. What's more important?
No, let me give you a little more. I think that they, leaders tend to look at what the immediate gains are instead of looking at the big picture. So, yes, they are sacrificing it too often.
What's more important, empathy or action?
If you have any question about how I'm going to answer this, you have not read or seen anything I have done. Empathy, empathy, empathy. But I will say that empathy without action is fruitless, but action without empathy is dangerous.
Oh, I love that. I have just written an article on compassion, and for me, empathy and action is compassion. And it just goes back to us being able to show out how empathetic we are when we do something about it, shows our compassion, and we can make strong, competitive, compassionate decisions in business too.
Yeah, and I want to go on that because I think that lots of people, I agree. Lots of people think compassion means being kind. I don't, and I think leaders need to understand that the way you treat human beings compassionately is not always being kind and nice to them. So I want to make that distinction, and because sometimes people do need to have blunt information that they may not like or want to hear. And that actually is being more human than not being blunt and direct to them at times. So yes, compassion, but not necessarily being nice all the time.
100%. Is resilience a personal trait or an organizational capability?
Yes.
On which side?
It is both. I think they are, but they operate in different ways, right? I think personal resilience is a human factor that comes, I think, from self-awareness, reflection, and to be honest with you, some form of meditation. I don't mean meditation of 30 minutes or an hour or sitting like Buddha or yoga. Those are nice, meditation, but meditation can happen in moments where people stop, right? Meditation is the idea that every once in a while, we need to step back from the world that we're in and reflect deeply on who we are in that moment. And so I think that's where a lot of resilience comes from on an individual level. Organizational resilience comes from setting up processes and systems that aren't rigid and that have good sense and respond capabilities, right? So part of a resilient organization is the idea that we do not know what the future is going to hold, so we establish our organization as if change is coming. And so I do think both resilience is both an individual and an organizational capability, but they are different things in each of those spaces.
Got you. Second last question. What's one small thing leaders can do to scale humanity in their teams?
Yeah, to me, I think it is to ask two questions. And these are the questions that like I always tell leaders to do when they have insights, which is ask the question, what have we learned and what are we going to do about it? And the reason why I like those questions is that, I think that learning and wanting to learn is a step towards being human centered. Like we could jumping all the way, right? Like, because what it does is it tells the organization that I want to hear from you. I want you to keep learning. And I want you to actually know that I'm not going to come in with the answers right away. And so I think that starts to empower the organization, and starts to have everyone thinking, not just what do I do in response to a command that comes from the top of the mountain, but how can I more deeply put myself, Ubuntu, I am because we are, we can't forget the I am part of it, right? That you are because we are, but you need to be a part of it, and learning and taking action on that learning is, to me, a great step toward being more human-centric.
As our time is ticking past, finish the sentence. The future of leadership is?
Deeply human. That is my hope, my desire, and I am going to be doing everything I can with my Humanity at Scale movement to make sure that it is deeply human.
Deeply human. Bruce, I have absolutely loved this conversation and your energy that you bring. Thank you for your insights and your stories, and for sharing Humanity at Scale and your vision with us. For our listeners who want more of Bruce Temkin in their lives, let's be honest, who wouldn't? I know I'm putting my hand up for 1,000 other people. How can they subscribe to your Humanity at Scale newsletter and join your movement?
Yeah, I think that the newsletter is the best place to follow me. It's humanityatscale.substack.com. I'm on Substack, so if you don't remember that, you can probably Google me in Substack, Humanity at Scale, and pretty soon I have humanityatscale.com and humanityatscale.org. I haven't set those up yet, but I have all those domains, so those will all sort of funnel you in pretty much. But I think humanityatscale.substack.com is the best place to go right now.
Thank you, Bruce. And to all our XEngage listeners, if there's one thing to take from today, is that great leaders lead with people, with humility, with humanity, and not over them. Whether you're in a boardroom or a call center or on safari in the Kruger National Park, every interaction counts. I'm Debi Potgieter, and this has been XEngage. Until next time, keep leading with purpose and humanity at scale.
Thank you for tuning in to the XEngage podcast. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to leave a comment, share your insights, or start a conversation. If you found value in today's episode, we kindly ask that you give us a follow on our social media platforms for more CX content, and subscribe to the podcast below so you never miss an episode. Until next time, keep creating exceptional experiences, one interaction at a time.
Leaders talk, we learn, we grow. Innovation's got that glow. To write in, dive in deep. Insights here are yours to keep. CX dreams shining bright, bringing heart, mind, and light. Every interaction aligned just right.